I'm joined now by the founder of Democracy Defenders Fund, Norm Eisen. Norm, thanks so much for joining me.
Brian, always a pleasure to be with you.
So we have some major news as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, as far as new executive orders that Donald Trump has signed are concerned, as far as Trump weaponizing the government are concerned. So we have a lot to talk about here, but I want to start with the Supreme Court. The court has agreed to reconsider who Trump can fire. Can you explain why this is such a cataclysmic move by the court?
Um, Brian, the court today has granted certiorari, has agreed to hear the case of Rebecca Slaughter of the Federal Trade Commission. And the reason this matters so much is way back in the Roosevelt administration, the court decided a case that said the Federal Trade Commission, the very same commission, can operate independent with a certain amount of independence. And it kind of recognized this category of agencies within the executive branch known as independent agencies. This was in a very famous case known as Humphrey's Executor. And the reason it is so important to have some independence in our federal government um, is because we want to see checks and balances operating. So there's a bunch of other cases that are to the side. There's a couple that the court decided not to take today, others that are pending. But with respect to this case, this is an example of the court challenging a 100-year-old precedent that has been very successful in having a federal trade commission overseeing trade to make sure that it's working, overturning an old precedent on the FTC, um, and, or not. We'll see what they're going to do with this. But the belief is that they are going to move on this precedent. There's been some baby steps in the past for example, for the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Board, which I actually helped work on and implement as part of the Obama administration, multi-member. That's a sole member. Multi-member independent agencies have not yet been addressed. And that's what this is going to do for the FTC. So it's a significant grant of cert. I agree with the dissenters in this case that we need independent agencies. We need the FTC. Now the case will unfold and we'll see what happens.
Is this not a massive break from the self-proclaimed originalists on the Supreme Court and the conservative bloc of the Supreme Court who don't want all of this power consolidated in the hands of just, one powerful executive, but rather believe in states' rights and in kind of like this anti federalist posture?
It would be much better to respect the longstanding precedent. There's a legal rule that you leave cases in place. Stare decisis is the name of that rule. So I do agree with the minority in this case that this represents a break. And although it's cabin, there is some narrowness to it. Um, we will see what happens in other cases. Um, the world would be much better off with independent agencies, with the FTC, with the FLRA, with the NLRB, with the MSPB. These are the different agencies that operate to that operate to keep our government working with integrity, to provide some checks and balances on the president. So I think it is a course of action that does not optimally protect the independence of these agencies, these alphabet soup agencies within the executive branch.
Okay, so I want to move over to a different topic here. This is breaking news right now. Donald Trump will have signed a brand new executive order. Can you explain what that executive order is and where you think it lies in the realm of, federal overreach that we've seen at the hands of this administration?
Yeah. Donald Trump has just signed a new executive order. We know his executive orders are his preferred means of unconstitutional and illegal conduct. This one is in retaliation against his supposed left wing uh, cartoon. Uh, Adversary, Antifa. Antifa is not a group, Brian. It's an ideology.
Right.
I don't know how you sanction an ideology, but he said that the government is designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. He's asked government agencies to go after Antifa. This is part of the false narrative that Donald Trump has used to exploit the killing of Charlie Kirk. Nobody countenances that murder. Nobody agrees that political violence is appropriate. On the contrary, I and everyone else I know has condemned political violence,
Yeah.
including the killing of Charlie Kirk. But Brian, what Donald Trump has done is to use that as kind of a modern day Reichstag fire,
Yeah.
an event to drive his attack on his perceived adversaries. He's blamed the left wing. There's no evidence that any outside group was involved, and the ideology of the shooter appears to be very, very complicated. Um, the targeting now of Antifa, when they had nothing to do with this shooting, is more of this performance. And just as political violence is wrong, the killing is wrong. You dishonor the memory of the deceased by using it as a political football. That's what Donald Trump is doing here in his relentless drive to target the left wing. But since if you look in the yellow pages under A, you won't find Antifa listed as an actual organization, it's not clear what the effect of the order will be.
To what extent are you concerned that because Antifa doesn't actually mean anything, it's not a real group, that he can then use that as a catch-all term to describe anybody on the left, from you and me to any adversary anywhere, Tish James, Adam Schiff, I mean, you name it?
That is the danger of these made up terms, but we do have a safeguard, Brian, and the federal courts have proven hundreds of times that they are a bastion against Donald Trump's unconstitutional legal behavior. Here, this is void. This executive order is too vague to mean anything. If he tries to do that, tries to hit any innocent group, indeed any group with this executive order, I think you're going to see a rapid journey to federal court and an injunction against the application of this order, as we and others have secured many prior injunctions. His birthright executive order enjoined, his elections executive order enjoined, many others. And so the courts are bashing. Um, and it's gotten so extreme that, federal judges are now talking off the record about the assault on the rule of law in our country. I should say on background. Here, let me do that sentence again.
Sure.
It's gotten so extreme that federal judges are now talking on background to reporters about the onslaught on the rule of law in our country, not about their cases, about the general situation. I've never seen that before in my lifetime as a lawyer. So the system is on red alert. And if Donald Trump attempts to implement this order illegally, he will be stopped.
And finally, let's finish off with something that's a little bit different, but very much in the same vein. And that is the firing of the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia so that he could make way for a new U.S. Attorney. I believe it was Maggie Cleary who was put in place so that she would do what the previous U.S. attorney wouldn't do, which is to prosecute Letitia James. I've spoken at length on this channel about the extent to which this would be such an egregious vindictive prosecution anyway that it's almost worth it for Trump to try, so that Letitia James can prove him out to be the paper tiger that he is and get this thing shot down immediately at the hands of whatever judge gets it. But just more broadly, what does the fact that he's engaged in this overt weaponization of government say about the way in which he's kind of handling the DOJ?
His handpicked choice, an uber Trump loyal insurance defense lawyer from Florida, Lindsay Halligan, has now been installed as the interim U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. And Brian, you have been so important in sounding the red alarm. This is one of the most serious red lines that has been crossed, because you had Donald Trump demand a prosecution of AG Tish James because he perceived her as a political adversary, because she litigated a legit civil fraud case against him. You had Donald Trump's cronies, Ed Martin and Bill Pulte in government, put a case together against her. You saw public disclosures that blew that case up. There was no case. Donald Trump's own ally, the first U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert, refused to bring the case. That's 4 guardrails that have been breached. The 5th guardrail, Siebert was fired by Donald Trump because he refused to do it. And now Trump has, on Truth Social, I think accidentally put a note to Pam Bondi that he wants Tish James prosecuted. And he's installed his hand-picked crony, Lindsay Halligan, to do it. That is not America. It is unconstitutional. It is illegal. That is like something out of Stalin's Soviet Union. It is darkness at noon, the famous book about that justice system. But fortunately, there are additional guardrails. The grand jury, the judge who's overseeing the grand jury, the judge who gets this case if there are charges, and the jury and the courts of appeals. So there's 5 more guardrails yet to go. But make no mistake, Donald Trump has busted through that first series 6 guardrails. He's more than halfway through the guardrails, Brian.
Yeah.
Each one of those guardrails exploded should be a loud alarm. This is one of the most dangerous moments in the history of the extremely risky Trump administration.
Well, look, all of this underscores the need for fighters. There is no one who has sued the Trump administration more than you, Norm. So for folks who right now are looking to support the invaluable work that Norm and his team are doing, I'm going to put the link to Democracy Defenders Fund right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. It is their litigation that really serves as the basis for so much pushback against the worst excesses of the White House. So Norm, with that said, thank you so much for taking the time and for all the fighting that you're doing.
Thanks, Brian. We appreciate you.